Hey, in today's video, let's do something fun. So I found this artist that I really liked on ArtStation. His name is Mario Zub. And I contacted him and I asked him if I could use his concept art on some of the tutorials that I'm doing. And he gave me a permission. I really love the style of these characters, and it has the whole Overwatch vibe that I really enjoy. And just for this tutorial, I'm just going to randomly select something from Mario's portfolio. So let's go into this image here. And for today's quick tutorial, let's see what it would take, one of the techniques that we could possibly do to create maybe a similar hairstyle in zBrush from this image. So let's go ahead and jump into zBrush. Alright, so here I am in zBrush, and again, the only thing I'm going to be focusing on is just the hair, right? So I don't really care about the face, and for that reason, let's go to Lightbox, and let's select something that is called Demo Anime Head. So I'm going to choose that, and that's going to be sort of my base for the hair, right? Alright, so how do we go about creating this cool kind of stylized chunky hair, right? Well, I think the best way to start is going to be, let's append a box. So I'm going to append a box, and I'm going to select my box layer, and I'm going to turn it into a Dynamesh. The reason I'm turning it into Dynamesh is because I want to have more topology to play with, especially if I slice or cut, right? The next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to jump out of perspective mode and snap straight view in my perspective, in my orthographic view, by rotating this and then holding down the shift key, and that's going to snap straight on. And I know it's straight on because I can see the guy's face, right? If I grab my move tool, I can use the scale to figure out what is the thickness of my hair. So by thickness, I mean, if you look really closely in the reference, you can see that there's a specific kind of a chunky thickness. So I kind of like that as well. So maybe something along these lines, right? I'm gonna move this up, and then I'm gonna go into the top view, and let's go ahead and make it a little bit wide, because I don't want to have too many of these strands. So you can see there's only 4 in front, and you do have additional kind of a sharper ones, right, that are not part of the initial blocky one, but we can add those later. So I'm gonna go with something like this, and then I'm going to let's go ahead and press Control and Shift and hold it, then click on our brush, and let's select something called Knife Curve. Select that. Then let's go ahead and press X to activate our active symmetry. I'm gonna go to draw mode and do press Control, Shift, and then drag, and then release Control and Shift, and all you have, if you're holding down your left mouse button, you can see that you have this line that you can sort of control by going left and right. If you press spacebar, this will allow you to move the line into different positions. So I'm gonna go right in the corner here and do something along these lines. I think that's gonna be a good chunk for my hair. All right. Next, I'm gonna go on the side, and I'm gonna grab my move tool, and let's go ahead and position this right in the kind of where the center is, and then from this point on we can rotate it all the way around the head. But before we do that, let's also create this nice curve, right? How do we bend this? So to bend this, what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna unlock my pivot and set my pivot right at the very edge of it. I'm gonna lock it, then I'm gonna rotate it. I'm gonna click on this little gears settings icon, go to bend curve. I'm gonna use this orange cone to change the resolution by just dialing it to the point where I just have 1 in the middle and 2 on each end, so 3. Then I'm gonna take this point and just kind of bend it, creating a curve for my hair strand. And I think something like this is pretty much perfect. I'm gonna click on my gear again and say accept, which is gonna bake my curve my bend into my mesh, right? So I'm happy with this. Next, I'm gonna, let's go ahead and unlock this, reset our rotation, and put our pivot back where it was in the center, right? So somewhere around there. Let's go ahead and lock this. And let's think about this. So this is gonna be, again, we need 4 in front, which are really short, and we have the long ones that go all the way around. So let's maybe take care of the short ones, because when we do the long ones, we want to make sure that it sort of all fits together and matches nicely, right? So to do this, what I'm going to do is I'm going to jump out of the Dynamesh mode. And the reason I'm jumping out of the Dynamesh mode at this point is because if I don't, and I end up merging any of my layers together, they're going to retain the Dynamesh and they're going to kind of smush together. So it's going to be one big blob. If I get out of the Dynamesh mode, you can see that it's going to have its own poly group, which means it's going to allow me later on to control each individual strand separately. So that's super important. Make sure you're not in Dynamesh mode at this point. All right. So the next thing I need to do is let's kind of copy what the reference is, right? So maybe let's create 4 pieces in front. So to do this, I'm going to do maybe one here. I'm going to duplicate it, do one more somewhere here, duplicate it one more time, and do something like this, and do one more maybe on this end. All right, so now I have 4 pieces, and obviously before I cut them, I need to make sure that I have another one that I could use for the back ones, right? So let's do this one more time. I'm going to duplicate this again, and I'm going to take this extra one and just simply place it on the side, so somewhere around here, okay? And I can even hide it, right? All right, so now what I could do is I can take all of these slices and I can merge them down. So I'm going to say merge down, okay? And if we wanted to, we can even rename them something like front hair maybe. Well, essentially they're bangs, but front hair will work, right? Next, let's go ahead and go into our front view. Let's turn on our polyframe and click on auto groups. And you can see that you are retaining each strand, because you're again not in Dynamesh. Each strand is going to retain its poly group, which is great, right? Which also means if we hold on Control and Shift and click on each one, you can see that we can mask it and we can control it, right? That's going to be super important once you start playing around with how they actually fit, and if you want to change their rotation at any point, right? You want to maintain those poly groups, so that's super important. All right, so now let's go ahead and jump out of the polyframe. I'm gonna go into the draw mode. I'm gonna do Control Shift and grab my slice, and let's just create a slice that is somewhere around, it's better to do it longer because then you can add more. So let's do something like this. You know what, I'm happy with mine. So I'm gonna leave it at that. And this is what I was telling you. So you can see that some of these hairs are overlapping in sort of a strange way. But if you grab your move tool and turn on your mask by poly groups, and you can find this one in the brush, settings. So you can see on the bottom it says button path is brush, auto masking, mask by poly group. So if you don't have that on your UI, obviously it's under brush. That's where that is on the bottom. Auto masking, and that's what that is. So I just have it dragged on my UI, right? All right, so I'm gonna turn this on, and what that's gonna allow me to do now, if I make my brush really large, right, I can take each one and just change slightly the depth of the hair, and you can see that it's overlapping much nicer, right? It doesn't have that strangeness when it's overlapping. So I can even do this. So you have full control again, because these are separate poly groups. So that's really important, right? I'm just gonna keep saying that. Okay, so let's go ahead next turn on our other hair strand that's kind of just is sitting there on the side. And let's go ahead and go back to the top view, grab our move tool, and let's start copying it all the way around, right? So I'm gonna duplicate it, and let's move it somewhere around here. And I purposely created this space, so I'm going to take care of that in a minute. Of course, you don't have to do that. You could make them nice and tight, something like this. But I have a feeling it would look nicer if it had like a lower, you know, another level of hair. So I'm going to do this by creating this space. I'm going to say duplicate again and do the same thing again and just create that space, right? So I have something like this. Okay, now what I can do is I can take these pieces, I can merge them together, right? Merge them down, and then I can duplicate them. And now what I can do is I can offset them, something like this. And then what I could do is I can actually push them down, right? And the cool thing about this is that it's going to allow me to quickly create kind of double layers. And you can see what that looks like. And I think I'm pretty happy with this. I like this. So let's leave this and let's grab this guy here. I'm going to duplicate this again and I'm going to mirror it to the other side. Now this mirror button, if you don't have that on your UI, again, this is from button path tool deformation mirror. So you want to go to your deformation, and I'm using a mirror right here. So some of these buttons are obviously dragged on my UI because I'm using them a lot, right? So great, let's go ahead and grab, I'm gonna alt click on this piece here, and I'm going to, let's go ahead and duplicate it as well and flip it also. And now everything looks really good except the back here has two of them, right? And I don't want that. So if I take a look, I can see that there's some strangeness going on there. So what I need to do is I need to delete one of these duplicates. So what we could do is we can hold down the shift key and click on this eyeball, and that's gonna hide everything except this piece. And essentially I just want to delete this. So how do I do that? Well, again, if I turn on my polygroups, I can see that it has its own polygroup colors, right? If I say auto groups, it's going to give me the entire mesh is going to be one solid polygroup, which means I can control shift and click, and then click on it again to hide it. And then what I can do is I can press delete hidden. Now this button is in geometry, tools, geometry, or under geometry, delete hidden. So you can find that as well. I'm going to click delete hidden, then I'm going to hold on the shift key and unhide all the eyeballs. Let me click on this guy here. Alright, so let's do this again. I need to separate this from the other strands, right? Right now they're sort of grouped together in one layer. So if I hold on if I hold on the shift key and click on my eyeball, I can take a look at what he looks like. Again, turn on the polyframe, auto group it. Now I can do control shift and click, and I can hold on control drag to mask it, control shift click outside to bring everything back. And now what I can do is I can go to split and do split masked, right? So that's gonna put this piece in its own layer. Hold on the shift key to click on the eye to bring everything back. And now if I grab my move tool, I should be able to just simply rotate this into a better position. All right, so something along these lines. Now there is some space, so I could make it a little wider. I could cheat, and that works. Another thing that I can of course do is grab something like the move tool and just make kind of a custom adjustment to some of these spacing, some of the spacing that is happening, right? So that something like that works. We can adjust this mess in a second. Before we do, let's go ahead and create that really nice slice that you're seeing in the reference, right? So for that, what I'm going to do is I'm going to grab every single hair strand and just merge it together. So I'm going to merge it down into one big piece. Turn on my polyframe and do auto group again. And you can see each one is its own color, which is great. Okay. Hold on Control Shift and do a slice, and let's figure out a nice big angle, just like the reference. It seems to be really high, right? So something like that, I think is perfect. And do a slice. And you can see how that, what that looks like. And I think that looks really good. All right. If we wanted to bring these in because they're kind of floating out a little bit, I could grab my move brush, make it really large, turn off or dial down mask by polygroups, turn my symmetry on by pressing X, and just sort of just move them in. So I have full control over that, which is great, right? And you can even, if you wanted to create kind of a nice bend as well by changing the size of your brush. See, I see there's a little bit of a bend there. All right, so it's just a matter of preference. Now, if you wanted to fix all of these issues, again, turn this back on, make your brush kind of large, and just individually lift each piece up or down, you know, based on what makes sense. And that will solve kind of that mess that doesn't look too great, right? All right, so I think this is nice. And let's go ahead and go into a perspective view and take a look. I think this is really cool. If I do a quick BPR, I can see what that looks like. And at this point, it's just a matter of dialing it into what you like. But if you wanted to create some of these slices that you're seeing in the hair, right? Obviously, that's pretty easy. All you need to do is just select the mesh that you want to slice, do Control Shift, and then what you want to do is you want to create, find the point where you want to go up to, so maybe something like this, and then tap Alt twice, and that's going to create a sharp angle, and then when you release, it's going to create that cut that you're seeing in the reference. So for example, there's one more here, so and a big one right there, right? So we can just, again, Control Shift, press spacebar to kind of move it around again, and then do Alt twice really fast to create the sharp angle, and then do the cut. So there you go, and you can go around, and I'm gonna press Alt and select this one, and let's do the same thing. Let's do one here as well. You can see it's doing it on both sides because I have my active symmetry on, and very quickly you can create kind of a really nice detail. Cool, very cool. All right, well, the that's pretty much it. That's the only thing I want to show you. You know, for these little strands, to add the little strands on top, that's just a matter of you know, grabbing another type of brush. Personally, I have a brush that I can include in the description that I love, that I use for these kind of little things. So let me just show you what I would do, right? So I would import my brush, and again, I'll provide a link in the descriptions for this. So this one is called Cartoon Hair Blue Man brush, and what I could do is I can select, for example, let's select the front, and all I would have to do is just drag a hair strand that I want into position, and if you drag it around, this is a really nice brush. Now it's acting a little funny because the surface that I'm dragging on is not actually even, but you get the idea. So if I drag that, and then let's say I want to smooth this, I can hold on the Shift key and I can just smooth this out a little, right? So I have something like that, which is really nice. My intensity is a little too intense. I'm gonna go to like 7. So I have a little more control. So you could see how quickly you can create what you need, right? Then I'm gonna click on this mesh to bake my line in, and I can, of course, move this into position, and there you have it. You can also, maybe I can go to something like split and do split on masked. So now I have this piece by itself. I can press Control D if I want to make it a little smoother, right? But that's how you would go around and create those strands as well. Alright, so that's pretty much it. I hope you enjoyed this tutorial. If you did, please subscribe and like this video, and I will see you in the next one.